Steve Colescott here with Dave Tate. We're doing more You Ask, We Answer. And our question here, it's actually two questions from the same guy. We're going to merge it together from Bryce Lewis. Thank you, Bryce. Bryce asked us, well, the first one is, what type of changes does an experienced lifter need to make in programming to go from good to great in terms of combined total in general? And then his follow-up is the same question to go, what do you need to do to go from a 600 plus squatter to a 700 pound squatter? So to make that quantum leap, what type of things have you done, or people that you've trained with or trained, what have they done to make that jump?
Well, you're using my scale of shit, suck, good, great, you know. So to go from shit to suck, it's a big step, because that means you got to actually commit to something, which most people haven't or are not able to do. They're not really able to go all in, they just might mess around a little bit. To go from suck to good, that's another big flight of steps, because now you got to be consistent, you got to be dedicated to what you're doing, you need to train hard, you need to train intelligently. It can't be a hobby. It has to be something that you are very serious about. To go from good to great, it's only one step, you know, but it's that one step nobody wants to take. You know, it's being sacrificed, or making the sacrifice when all your buddies are going out on Friday night, but you got to train on Saturday morning. You got to be able to say, no, I got to train the next day. And many more small steps like that determine going from good to great. You know, it's making all those small sacrifices that everybody else isn't willing to make because they justify them. Well, I can go do this and it's still okay. So to answer that question, it's not really a programming answer. It's an answer of discipline, sacrifice, and what are you willing to actually do to go to that next step. Programming wise, you know, if you're already good, you've already kind of figured it out. You know, once you are at that level to where your commitment is that you're going to accept no other option but to be great, well, then you will be that, because you're not going to accept anything else other than that. When you are there at that level, in whatever it is, you know, usually I'll define that as being in the top 20% of whatever you're doing, then it becomes more of what I think he's actually asking me, what things need to be done if you're an elite lifter, if you want to become even better, you know, as that elite lifter. And typically a lot of that falls back to a lot of the same things that need to be focused on as a beginner. The technique has to constantly be dead on. The one thing that you'll see with an elite or a pro lifter is if you watch their technique, the only time it will ever break down is if the weight's too heavy that forces them out of the groove. If you watch them in the warm-up room, every single repetition looks the same over and over and over and over. And when I'm looking at videos of our lifters, when they want me to analyze it, usually they're going to send me their last 3 lifts. The first thing I look at is the consistency. You know, are all 3 lifts, do they all look exactly the same? And if they don't, which one looks the best? And then you look at that, and then you compare what went wrong in those other 2. So technique's going to be a huge factor there. The other factor from the training, and it falls a little bit back down to the original statement, is there's a lot of things that you can do, if it's nutritionally, if it's you know, just basic conditioning, your GPP, that may only add 0.5% or 1%, but all those little percents add up. So you need to look at all those things that could make you a better lifter, and then you need to do them. And that's pretty much it, you know. And that's not saying that you're going to be the best of the best, because too many other factors fall into there, such as genetics and other things, but it will make you the best you can possibly be, and probably better than you ever thought you could be.
So the programming doesn't change, but you get more from the programming by putting more into it with those other aspects.
Yeah, if the programming does change, it's going to change because you know what needs to change. There becomes a point in time with every advanced lifter and probably every advanced athlete as far as that goes, to where they basically almost have mastered how to train themselves. So they'll know through their own training at what point they need to back it down, at what point can they drive harder. So if the program says they need to do 85% for a triple, and they're warming up and they know this is a day they could probably push it a little bit more, they know to push it a little bit more. If they're warming up and they know it's not there, they know to back it down. So they become more in sync and more in tune. And I call it auto-regulated, you know, with their training, or audible ready. They know how to make those calls during their training, while they're training, from set to set, from rep, you know, rep to rep, set to set, session to session. So the programming isn't so much, now I'm doing block training, or now I'm doing Westside training. It just says, now I'm doing Dave training, you know, which is modeled after whatever, you know, theory you're using. But you figured out how you train yourself. That's a big part of what that leap is as well. At the same time, those are the people who no longer fall for every new training method that comes around, because they already know what they need to do and how they need to do it. Now they'll look at the other training methods and the other programs for ideas to help fill those voids, but that all falls in there, and it's something that I don't believe is a teachable thing. You know, it's you can teach them different methods and programming, but that's something that they just hit a certain point in time and then they know. And I remember speaking to Jeremy years ago, you know, and talking about this very subject. And he said there just came a time where he knew, you know, this is what I need to do, this is how I need to do it. And it locked in and everything took off from there. So it's a magic moment, I suppose. I don't know how else to define it.
Okay. Thanks for the question, Bryce.